What's up, everybody? It's Artist Anderson here, your TRM leader. I hope you're feeling good because I'm feeling great. It is fellowship time once again, and it is Relationship Wednesday, where we're talking about marriage and relationships. And we have been on a series called Relationships Die Without This. This is love. So relationships die without love. But what we've been doing is looking at 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 4 through 8. And we've been going through each characteristic of biblical love and applying those principles to our marriages and our relationships. And what we've learned and what we are continuously learning is that sometimes the idea of love that we grew up with is not the accurate form of love. And, you know, what movies have shown us and television has shown us, Disney, you know, all types of stuff, or music or ideas that we have as love and things that we call love might not actually be love. And so what we've had to do was take a deep dive into the scriptures in 1 Corinthians 13 and really dig out principles so that we can apply it to our relationships and our marriages. And so we are on part 9 tonight. We are on part 9. Sorry if I put part 8. I have to go back and correct that. But we're on part 9. Okay, we're on part 9. And so what we have to be able to, let me make sure I got this up and running. All right, so listen, we're going to jump right into it. Y'all know where we're going first. Turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 13. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, we're going to start reading at verse 4. And we're going to jump right in the New King James Version, where it says, love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself. It is not puffed up. It does not behave rudely. Does not seek its own. Is not provoked. And tonight we are talking about love thinks no evil. Uh-oh. This is going to be a tough one for people. Ladies, this might be a little bit more tougher for you. But it's going to be a tough one, possibly. So let's jump right into it. 1 Corinthians 13, verse 5, it says, love thinks no evil. That word think means to reckon, to count, to calculate, okay, to number. And then the word evil, it means bad nature or a mode of thinking, a bad mode of thinking or feeling or acting. So when we put it together, love thinks no evil, right? What we're simply saying is when love is being displayed in a relationship or marriage, it will not think, remember, or focus on any of the wrong that's been done. Uh-oh. 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 So when love is being displayed in a relationship and marriage, it will not remember, think on, or focus on any of the wrong that has been done. People are struggling already. I know. Because you like to think about everything that has happened and everything that has gone wrong and everything that's been done wrong. Let's work through this. True love will move past the history of the wrongs, the pains, the hurts, and rather than continuously focusing on that, right? Love will begin to focus on the present and the future and all the things that's been corrected, things that's going good, things that are productive, things that are healthy, okay? Now, you may be thinking, what if it keeps happening? How can I, stop thinking about it? Or how can I not think about it? Or how can I move past it if the same things that happened in the past is happening now or keeps happening? You're asking, should I keep moving past this? Should I keep overlooking it? That's a great question. So let me ask you a question. If that is happening, why haven't you left? Now, if you're married, I understand you can't just walk away. But for my people in relationships who have that question, why haven't you left? Who is really at fault when someone continues to hurt you, abuse you, etc., and you stay? If people say, I'm going to stop doing this, and they keep doing it, and you stay, who's at fault? See, it's no longer them doing it to you, it's you giving them permission to do it to you. Because the fact that you stayed communicates everything that you need to know. Let's look at 1 Peter chapter 4. 1 Peter chapter 4. I know that's tough to hear, but let's look at 1 Peter chapter 4. Let's look at verse 8. Let's look at verse 8. Let's look at something. 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 8, it says, and above all things, have fervent love for one another, for love will cover a multitude of sins. Love will cover a multitude of sin. Sin means to miss the mark. So let's apply it to marriage and relationships. True, genuine love, true God love will cover or wipe away or overlook sin or an offense or a hurt. Now, what would marriages and relationships look like if this principle was being practiced daily in your marriages and your relationships? What would that look like? Like, what would that genuinely look like? What would that look like? Ask yourself. What if we made conscious decisions not to entertain the negative thoughts, the negative history, the negative issues, the small things that don't really make or break the marriage or relationship per se. But instead we focus on the good, the positive, the great things, right? What if we stopped entertaining negative thoughts based on what our spouse has done in the past or what has happened and transpired in the past? But instead, what if we loved each other and covered those sins, those issues, those faults, those mistakes with what the Bible calls love? Love is a powerful tool. I've been telling y'all for the last 9 weeks that relationships are a gift, and that without love, your relationships and your marriage dies. So one of the things we've been constantly talking about for the last 2 months now is the fact that we have to learn to implement love in our marriages and our relationships so that they can remain successful and healthy. And thinking evil does not help that. The ESV version of the Bible, I don't normally read this version, but I like this translation as regards to this verse 5. Listen to what it says. It says, love is not resentful. Resentful means feeling or expressions of bitterness or anger or annoyance or displeasure. So resentment is a combination of things that lead to negative feelings, right? Causing you to have those negative feelings towards your spouse, whether it be due to hurt, offense, unresolved conflict. It may be needs that didn't get met for you as an individual. It could be disappointments and letdowns. All those things can lead to resentment. And when things happen and it doesn't get dealt with, resentment usually gets worse and worse and worse, leading to destructive and explosive issues in your relationship and in your marriage. So here is the thing I want you to understand, though. When resentment turns to bitterness, that is a very dangerous thing. You see, bitterness is a result of unforgiveness. So unforgiveness leads to resentment, which leads to bitterness. Okay? Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1, I'm going to just quote it. It says, to everything there's a season and a time under the heavens. So if we look at that principle, that everything has a season and a time, everything has a season and a time, then why don't we apply that to offense? Let's apply, right? Why don't we apply that to everything in regards to our marriage and relationship? For example, we can apply that principle to major things like broken trust, for example. That may take months to get over and let go. Understood. On other things that may not be as major, it may take weeks to move past or get over. Some things may take days, some things may take hours, some things may take minutes. But what cannot happen is you cannot take months and years to get over everything just because you hurt or disappointed or offended. See, this is life, and people are going to disappoint you. And you're not always going to be happy with everything. But you need to learn how to perform 3 words. Let it go. You have to learn that. You have to learn that. And you can't take small things and take years to get over. Now, I understand things are relative to the individual, so I can't just say all things are small to everybody. But we all have some sort of common knowledge of when we say small things, okay? After the offense, there is a time to heal, and then there's a time to let it go and forgive. When you don't forgive, and here's what I want you to understand. When you don't forgive, let's just say you get hurt or you get offended or whatever the case may be. To everything, there's a season and a time. So you have a season and a time to work through that pain and forgive and let it go. When you don't forgive in the allotted time and season that's presented to you, when you're hurt or when something happens, it becomes bitterness. And the Bible talks about bitterness being poison. Now, how many of you would just drink poison for fun or drink poison because you're hurt? See, it doesn't make sense when you put it in that type of logic. Oh, your feelings hurt, so drink some poison. See, it doesn't make sense, do it? So why would you let unforgiveness harbor in you knowing that it's poison now? According to Hebrews 12:15, bitterness is poison and it is a root that causes trouble and corrupts many people. See, relationship record keepers mentally document their hurt and their pain and their offenses, and they hold on to it instead of letting it go. People can be serious and irrational, emotional hoarders. They can become more committed to making sure that you remember what you did to them than actually focusing on the success of the marriage or the relationship. If you are wronged in a marriage or a relationship, there should be a method for resolving it. And then there should be a process of moving on from it. And that should be a habit that is implemented in your marriage and your relationship. Because once you move on from it, you don't make it a habit of bringing it back up just because you get mad. Even if it's the same transgression, even if it's the same issue, bringing up what happened in the past still does not help. What we have to deal with is what's happening in the present. That's what we have to deal with. And after you deal with it, you move forward. You ever wonder why people can't remember the good things you do and report that? You ever wonder that? You ever wonder how come everybody can remind me of what I did wrong or what I did to hurt them, but they can't seem to recall the good as much as the bad? Well, in a relationship, unfortunately, many people tend to remember what they should forget and move past from, and forget what they should remember. It's a dynamic that we individually have to learn how to deal with in our marriages and our relationships, right? I want to focus on, go back to 1 Corinthians 13. I want to go to the New Living Translation because it says something in that translation that it just always stuck with me. Go to 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 5 in the New Living Translation. I'm going to show you something because everybody that loves to hold on to the bad in their marriage and relationship, you're almost trying to destroy it. Let's do smoothly. Let's look at verse 5. It says, and y'all can ask questions at any time. It says in verse 5 in the New Living Translation, it says, it does not demand its own way, it is not irritable, and it keeps no record of being wrong. It keeps no record of being wrong. The Amplified says it does not take into account a wrong endured. It does not take into account a wrong endured. Okay? Now let's begin to unpack this. So love does not hold on to wrongs. It does not hold on to mistakes. It does not hold on to grudges. It doesn't hold on to hatred. It doesn't hold on to scores. So what does this mean? It means that when you're in an actual marriage and in a relationship, when things happen, for example, your spouse forgets to wash the dishes, or they just don't feel like washing the dishes. Here's what people who love to keep records do. Every time they don't wash the dishes when you want them to, you control and sucker you. What you do is you bring up every single time that they didn't do the dishes when you wanted them to. You're controlling little roach. Yes, I said it. Yes, I said it. Why is that an issue? It's an issue because why are you keeping a record of what you would call a wrong just because they didn't do it when you wanted them to? Or let's talk about something a little bit more deeper. Let's just say they lied to you. Okay, we understand that lying is wrong. It's unacceptable. There's no excuse for it. We're not going to make an excuse for it. But if it happens, cool. You talk about it, you move forward. If you didn't break up with that person, you don't need to bring it up again. Because if it's such an issue and if it's that big of a deal, you should have walked away from the relationship. If it's that big a deal, you should separate in marriage for a season. Not divorce, just separate. But see, if something ain't big enough deal for you to walk away and break up or to separate, then you need to learn to understand that it's not that big of a deal, and you need to learn to move past it and learn to let it go and stop bringing up the past, because it is a damaging thing to your marriage and your relationship. Yeah, Tyrell, I know, man. We trying to help them, man. We're trying to help them. Listen. Love doesn't remember. Remember, we talked about this in the New King James Version. It thinks no evil. In your marriage and relationships, you don't spend time thinking about the bad. Why do people do that? Because they're conditioned to. You're going to have to recondition yourself to stop doing that. You're going to have to. You're going to have to. Because in order to be in a successful marriage, in a successful relationship, you're going to have to learn how to do 3 words. Let it go. Say it with me. Let it go. You have to. Because if it's not big enough to break up over, if it's not big enough to separate over, then why are you bringing it up? Is it because you like to be miserable? Is it because you like the other person to be upset? Is it because you have some unhappiness in you, some unresolved in you? See, we have to start getting deep about these issues. What's going on within you, right? Because believe it or not, people are so controlling that they get mad because you don't do something they want you to do. Think about that. That is unhealthy. That is unhealthy. There's nothing wrong with wanting your spouse to do certain things. But when you're creating a fuss and continuously nagging and complaining because somebody isn't doing what you want them to do, when you want them to do it, how you want them to do it, now we got some control issues. And that's a whole nother teaching. Marriage and relationships are not the place to record every time someone did something you perceive as being wrong. Somebody forgot to call you back, so you keeping a record of that. Somebody didn't text you back, so you keeping a record of that. They liked certain pictures on social media, and you didn't like the pictures that they liked, so you keeping a record of that. They didn't wash their clothes, and you recording that. They hurt your feelings, and you got a log of every time they hurt your feelings. And when something come up, you got every date and time that they did something to you. Every time they disappointed you, you got a record for that. Every time they let you down, you got a record for that. Every time they raise your voice, every time they raise their voice, I'm not saying that that's right, but you got a record for that. Every time they disrespected you, I'm not saying that that is okay, but you got a record for that. Every time they broke your trust, if they keep doing that, I don't even know why you're still there, but that's a whole nother conversation. You got a record for that. I'm amazed at how many relationships actually stay together when you really start actually paying attention to how many people keep a record of wrong. Keeping no record of wrong means you don't remind your spouse of the mistakes they made when you feel like it. It means you don't bring it up what they did last year just because you're mad about what they did today. It means you don't keep throwing it in your spouse's face how they hurt you or frustrated you or disappointed you, especially when they genuinely are apologetic and remorseful. That's one of the worst situations. When someone is actually apologetic and they actually feel bad about it and they actually have remorse and they actually don't do it anymore and you still bring it up. Now that right there is just unacceptable. That is an individual issue that you need to resolve personally, because it is not right to keep bringing the history into the present because you haven't gotten over it yet. I'm a firm believer. If you haven't broken up with somebody and you say you have moved on, then you need to stop bringing it up. I'm a firm believer in that. Because if something is that bad that you got to keep bringing it up, why are you still there? Marriages and relationships around the world deal with this very issue of keeping records of wrong. We live in a generation where people are throwing out the phrase, I love you. I mean, half the time people don't even mean it at this juncture of our world. A lot of times people just throw it out there. I love you. Oh, I love you too. Oh, I love you. Right? We say it to each other. But as soon as something new happens, people get irritable, frustrated, mad, hurt, disappointed. As soon as anything happens and you end up in one of those spaces, then here comes the records of wrong of what they did in the past or how they've hurt you. That ain't love. Let me clear something up. What I am not saying is, if you're in a marriage or relationship and something happens on Monday, and on Tuesday you've collected yourself to talk about it, and you talk about what happened on Monday, and you both agree, okay, cool, thank you for bringing that to me, it won't happen again, or my bad, or whatever the case may be, and you talk about it, you resolve it, cool. There's nothing wrong with doing that. The issue comes in is after you've talked about it, and after you have resolved it and moved past it, in 2 weeks, you bring up what happened 2 Mondays ago. That's the issue. And that's what it means when we say love. That's what it means to keep a record of wrong. But love keeps no record of wrong, okay? Love keeps no record of wrong. It's impossible to love somebody, think highly of them, and progressively have a healthy relationship and marriage, all at the same time holding a grudge for past things, past hurt, past mistakes, things that may have done in the past against them, right? Sorry, against you. It's almost like you have your own credit report for all of the wrongs they did. It's all of the delinquencies, right? It's like you have your own credit report for all the wrong they've done or all the unpaid debt. And now they're trying to correct their credit, fix their credit, and you won't remove the marks on their credit report, even after they've paid the debt and paid in full and gotten in compliance. The reminders of what your spouse or significant other did to you isn't love. Things in the past is now brought to the present. Things from the past that is brought into the present, that's not love either. Okay? That's not love. What we got to understand is that at the end of the day, true love doesn't keep any record of wrong, right? Regardless of the apologies, the remorse, when you bring up that history as if it was recent, okay, that's not love. That's not what love does. That's not what love does. Okay. All the times we see people make mistakes or decisions that hurt us, or hurt us. Blah, blah. All the times we see people, make mistakes or decisions that hurt us, and things of that nature. And we've seen people apologize. We've seen people actually be genuinely sorry, right? And actually try to move on and rectify it and earn back trust and all types of things. But yet we continuously keep bringing it up. How is a marriage going to be successful like that? How is a relationship going to be successful like that? It can't. Your struggle to let go and move past a thing should not be taken out on your spouse. It just shouldn't. It shouldn't happen. We as a, I was about to say we as a generation, but people have to learn to mature to the place and master letting things go and moving forward, not backwards. We have to get to a place where we have mastered that. We have to get to that place. But the way this happens is by a powerful word that I'm pretty sure a lot of people have a love-hate relationship with. Why do these things keep happening in our relationships and marriages? Why do we keep bringing up the past? Why do we keep bringing up the history? Why do we keep records of wrong? It's because of a word we love to hate and hate to love. And that word is forgiveness. I know. Felt like you just got punched in the gut. Forgiveness. Forgiveness. The reason why people struggle to let go is because of a word that most of us tend to hate when we are the ones that's hurt, and that's forgiveness. Forgiveness is a gift from God. It really is. God showed us the ultimate display of forgiveness through Christ, through Jesus. So why do people still struggle with forgiveness? Well, it's simple. Pride. Pride. When we get hurt in a relationship or marriage, people tend to want to see the other person get hurt the way you got hurt. You want to see them punished for what they did to you. You want to cause them pain so that they know how it felt, that type of thing. But here's the honest truth. A lot of that stuff is just immaturity, and we have to move past it. We have to learn how to deal with things in an adult manner. If you cannot forgive on a daily as a lifestyle, you are not ready for marriage or any relationship. I'll say that again. If you are not ready to forgive daily as a lifestyle, you know how you eat every day? You must learn how to forgive every day. Every morning you brush your teeth, hopefully. Every morning you need to forgive. Every night you wrap up your hair or whatever you do before you go to bed, you need to do that. You need to forgive too. It needs to become a part of your daily lifestyle. People have to start dealing with their history as it pertains to what they've been through and why they struggle to forgive before subjecting someone to that inconsistent behavior on a day-to-day basis. One day you good, one day you're not. The next day you fine, the next day you're not over it. It's just a back and forth cycle. You can't keep taking people through that. Let's look at Colossians chapter 3. Colossians chapter 3. Colossians chapter 3, verse 13. Colossians chapter 3, verse 13. It says this: make allowance for each other's faults. See, right there, that is a doggone word for you. Make allowance for each other's faults. See, in a marriage and a relationship, excuse me, smoothie. That's what you got to be able to do. Make allowance for other people's faults. You must give space in a room for someone else to have a fault. plural. The rest of the verse says, make allowance for each other's faults and forgive anyone who offends you. Wow. So a marriage and a relationship, the success is dependent upon daily forgiveness. Make allowance for each other's faults. Let's take that principle. People mess up in marriages. People mess up in relationships. What I am not saying is that if cheating is a non-negotiable and they keep cheating, I mean, that is a fault, but you have to decide that that's unacceptable and you have to move on from it. That's something you have to decide. If a fault is they keep leaving the toilet seat up after you have told them continuously to put it down, or if you told them certain things you don't like and they keep doing it, you have to decide, can I deal with this? Should I walk away? You have to make that decision. But at the same time, you have to start making room for some faults. Why? Because people have faults. But the rest of the verse, it says, and forgive anyone who offends you. In this case, we're talking about marriage and relationship. So you must forgive your significant other. Forgive your spouse. Forgive them. Forgive them if they offend you. What does forgive means? Forgive means to send away. So it's to send away an issue, a fault, a feeling. You have to send it away. It means to let it go, to give it up. It means to forgive a debt. It means to leave, to go away from, to keep no longer. Just pick a definition. And it will apply. But the point of the matter is there are a lot of people that are quick to want forgiveness, but slow to give it. People love to receive forgiveness, but they tend to hate giving it. Because people love to feel entitled to their pain. People love to feel like they have the corner marked, they have the market cornered, or they have won the trauma Olympics when it comes to pain. So they're slow to forgive, but they quickly want it when they are in the wrong. We sometimes think and live as if our hurt is greater or more important, right, than anybody else's, giving us permission to forgive when we want to forgive. But the truth is, your hurt isn't greater, it's not better, it's not worse than anybody else's. Hurt is hurt. And we all have been hurt by people. And all people need forgiveness, regardless of the size or the length or the faults or the mistakes or the decisions. So at the end of the day, you must learn to forgive on a daily basis. Because love does not keep any record of wrong. No relationship can remain healthy and be successful and thrive always talking about what's been done. You just can't do it. So let's just go ahead and say it. Let's just go ahead and get it out there. Your marriage and relationships are dead without daily practices of forgiveness. Forgiveness and healing go hand in hand. Forgiveness and healing go hand in hand. So when you choose not to forgive, you're choosing to not heal the issue in the marriage or the relationship. That's a personal choice. Forgiveness and healing go hand in hand. When forgiveness is received, healing will follow. True forgiveness is a gift and it should be given freely. Forgiveness is given as a gift of love, not something people need to earn. God is the source of forgiveness, right? So being that God is the source where forgiveness originated, and it was a gift from him that we couldn't earn it, right? We couldn't earn his forgiveness. It was a gift. We have to remember that same thing applies to us. We need to stop trying to make people who has hurt us in our marriage or relationships earn forgiveness. No, you need to give it freely. True forgiveness is when you forgive by choice as a gift without someone having to earn it. Now you may be saying, some of you, deep within your heart, I'll forgive, but I ain't never gonna forget it. I'm coming down your road right now. Here's the reality. scientifically, at least within a certain period of time, you're not going to forget certain things. Also, scientifically, there's some things you wouldn't even be able to remember if you tried. It's just the way it is. The brain is a complex organism. It's a complex organ, okay? But you may not literally forget, but true forgiveness is when you live as if you don't remember it. And that's not being fake. It means that you have to mature to a place where you can learn how to let things go and interact as if it never happened. That's what you have to be able to do. That's what forgiveness is. The decision to refuse to keep a record of wrong is a full example and expression of love, and it gives a greater life expectancy to the marriage and the relationship. So again, I'm not saying let people hurt you and abuse you or do wrong by you continuously. If that's happening, why are you staying? So I'm not saying that. But a person doing that is somebody you should never be in a relationship with. And a person doing that is somebody you should never marry in the first place. But if you have married someone like that, then you need to, work on some separation time to fix the issues. But what I am saying is people will be human, make mistakes. Things are going to happen. Our hearts shouldn't be focused on what went wrong or what somebody did to us all the time. Our hearts need to be focused and set on a practice of daily forgiveness and reconciliation. Moving forward, keeping history in the past to have a successful marriage and sustaining marriage and relationship. So as I wrap up, here's a couple things I just want to say, last but not least. If you want your marriage and your relationships to grow, if you want them to survive, if you want them to thrive, you must stop keeping records of wrong. You have to. You have to stop keeping records of wrong. It's counterproductive. One of the most powerful things you can do for your relationship and for your marriage is to keep a record of rights. Keep a record of the good. Keep a record of the positives. That's what I encourage you to do. Because true love does not keep a record of wrong. And true love does not think evil. Give your marriage and relationships a place to grow and succeed. All right? I encourage you all to continuously use this information, apply this information to your marriage and your relationships. See y'all next week. We got a couple of more sessions to go on this topic. We're almost to the finish line. See you all next week.